Hey there, welcome back to Beautifully. My name is Gisani or Dr. J, depending on who I am speaking with. But today I have a special treat for you. So if you've never heard of the Hummingbird story, you are in for quite a treat. And I say this because it's a story that has come up in my awareness a couple of times in this past year. And I've noticed that every time it comes up into my conscious awareness, something stirs within me. And I know that there is a powerful message in the story, not only because it moves me, but because in a little bit of the research that I've done in trying to locate where it originates from, I've found that this story of the hummingbird comes not just from one source, like a lot of people believe. So a lot of people believe that this hummingbird story originates from the Native American folklore. But if you do a little bit of research, you'll find that this story is found actually originating from multiple indigenous societies and cultures from all over the world. So if all of these cultures are telling the same story, I know there has to be a very powerful thread that interweaves this story. And I wanted to share this story with you today. Not only is this particular story a beautiful treat for you, but I'm hoping that what came of the story, what was inspired by the story, is something that can be of resource to you. So without further ado, let's dive into the story. Let's figure out what it is that is the message here for you today. And then we'll discuss a little bit about what we can take away from it, why it's so powerful, and what it can do for you in terms of helping you to locate and identify your purpose, your meaning, what might give you joy, and how to use the tools that are embedded within the story to make you either a better version of yourself or at least in a place where you feel like you're no longer stuck. And because I'm not the best storyteller, I'm going to ask you to just meet me halfway today. And by that, I mean, let's immerse ourselves in the story. So if you would like, you can feel free to close your eyes. You can keep them open. That's completely up to you. But I would like for you to imagine yourself in the middle of a jungle. And not just any ordinary jungle, but a mystical, magical jungle. It can be a place you've been to before in a past life or in this life. It can be a place you dream about, some place maybe you've heard in stories or read about. Whatever the case is, I would like for you to imagine yourself in the middle of a jungle. And what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that we're in this jungle, not in this moment, but a long, long time ago. Because a long, long time ago in this magical, mystical jungle, you'll find that a fire has caught. There was a spark somewhere that is now beginning to rapidly turn into a huge incinerating fire. And as you can imagine, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of animals that call this place home. But because of this fire that's spreading and growing, they had to flee. So I want you to imagine that you're in the middle of this jungle. On your back, you feel the heat of the fire growing, and you're in the midst of all of these animals running away from the fire. Now I want you to hone in on a particular creature that's running away, that is fleeing amongst the herds and the packs of animals that are all leaving. And you're going to locate a panther. Actually, let's make this a jaguar. I think we're going to stick to the original story. It's a jaguar. So I want you to imagine that you are locating and you found this jaguar, a beautiful, but there is a beautiful creature that is running away with the rest of the jungle animals. But this jaguar, as he is running away, something catches his eye in the sky. In the midst of all of these flocks of birds that are also running away, flying away, fleeing, he notices something because it's going the wrong way. He notices a hummingbird that instead of going with the direction of all of the animals that are fleeing, is flying backwards towards the incinerating fire that you can feel behind your back. He notices this creature, and the more he looks, the more he realizes that the hummingbird keeps going back and forth, from the fire to the fire, from the fire to the fire. And his curiosity, the jaguar's curiosity, gets the best of him. And so he actually pauses from running and he stops and catches the hummingbird's attention and asks the hummingbird, Mr. Hummingbird, I am so curious because I've noticed that you're going back and forth, not in the direction that we're going, but back and forth towards the fire and away from the fire. And I have to know, what is it that you're doing? Are you looking for something? The hummingbird looks down at the jaguar and says, well, Mr. Jaguar, as you can imagine, this place has been my home my whole entire life. Not only have I lived in this home, but this place has been a home within my heart. And I have to do everything that I can in my power to help save it. When the jaguar registers what he just heard, he pauses and he starts laughing. Once he finishes this roar of laughter, he looks at the hummingbird with disdain, and mockingly he tells the hummingbird, do you really think that there's anything you can do with your little beak going to and from the fire, that you're going to be able to make a dent, that you're going to be able to make some kind of influence or influential impact on this fire? And the hummingbird, you see, has been flying from the fire to the nearest stream, has been picking up a few drops of water, flying back to the fire, and dropping the few drops of water onto the fire. And the jaguar, he's laughing, he's mockingly teasing the hummingbird for the effort that he's making, because the jaguar doesn't believe and cannot foresee any reality, any world in which what the hummingbird is doing on his own can actually make an impact. The hummingbird gets even more serious when he hears the jaguar laughing and mocking him and says, that's fine, you can believe what you would like to believe, but I have to do my part. And he continues on his way back and forth, flying to and from the fire. Now, in a lot of the versions of this story that's told, that's where the story ends. But you get a special version, because in this version that you and I are immersed in today, the story doesn't end there. You see, as the hummingbird and the jaguar are having this conversation, the gods of the jungle overhear this conversation. And the gods are so moved by what the hummingbird is doing, what he said, that they actually sent a torrential downpour into the jungle and put out the fire. Now, this story carries a special meaning for me because a few years ago, I would say about 4-ish years ago, I was in a conversation. I was in the midst of a wonderful, soul-stirring conversation with a friend. And I received this download. And I had to stop him from sharing whatever he was sharing. And off the top of my head, I don't even remember. But I stopped him and I said, I have to share something with you. Because my whole body was shaking with what I'm going to call a download. And the message, this download from my higher guides, my spirit guides, the universe, God, however you'd like to label this deeper connection to a deeper meaning, the truth of life, to life and love. This message sounded something like this. Even though I consider myself to be so small and insignificant, this little dot in the middle of the universe, what I choose to do right now, today, ripples out not only to my immediate community or even a broader community, not even my country, and not even this planet and this world. What you and I choose right now, what we're doing, the shadow work, the inner healing, the spiritual journey that we put ourselves on, what we're doing actually ripples out to the rest of the universe. And this message, as whether it sounds simple to you or silly to you, this message that I received shook me to the core of my body. And it was then that I knew that as insignificant as I might feel, what I choose to do makes a difference. That the gods hear the earnestness of your heart. And I share this with you now. I think it's very significant in the time that we live in, whether it's the political chaos that we're in, whether it's the plight of the animals that live on our planet, the disrespect that we show not just the animals, but to everyone else that inhabits this planet. I know that I myself might not be able to do anything significant, I'm going to put that in air quotes for now, that might compel the rest of the universe to treat our animals with respect, to stop practices like chick culling, and by the way, big companies are doing right now, the hatcheries especially, that I'm talking about specifically, they will place male baby chicks on conveyor belts. And these male baby chicks ride the conveyor belt all the way to the end. And then when they get to the end, they fall off the conveyor belt into a big grinder. And these male baby chicks are ground up alive, all in the name of making a profit, because you and I have a demand for eggs. And as you can imagine, if you don't know me, brunch is my favorite, or was my favorite meal of the day. It was more than an inconvenience. And just the idea, the thought, the image of baby chicks being ground up because I want eggs, it broke my heart and actually shattered something in my soul. Sometimes when I think of things like that and the plight of our animals, I sometimes get to a point where I don't even want to be alive right now in this time and age. But it's only when I get to those moments that I remember the story of the hummingbird. And the story of the hummingbird shares with us not just as a little bird, you can do your part in sharing the water to put out fire, but that you, having won this lottery of life, where mathematicians, I'm not a mathematician, so I can't verify or confirm that the numbers are correct, but we have a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being alive or being born. If that's true, that must come with it a big responsibility. The responsibility is not necessarily that it's big or heavy, but this responsibility is actually quite simple when you think about it. Being born in this life, whether or not you believe in reincarnation, there is a sense of urgency that comes with you being here right now. Again, whether you believe that you've been alive before or you'll reincarnate again, there's something so compelling about you being alive right now. And if you are alive and won this lottery of life and you were born, 1 in 400 trillion chance of being here right now, your simple task is to remember, just to remember that you are here to be the creator and the author, the architect of your life. It doesn't mean that you have to rise to a level of some kind of enlightened guru, but that being an author and creator and architect or engineer of your life, all it is moment to moment remembering that you have a choice. You have a choice in what thoughts you perceive or entertain, what feelings you want to wallow or savor yourself in, what particular beliefs you want to form about this life. It's not to say that we're going to resist or deny that we have or experience uncomfortable, painful experiences or feelings, but it's to take an intentional stance and on purpose allow yourself to honor every aspect of this life and just pick whichever sliver of life you want to really savor and have more of and focus your life with intention on that. The easiest way to do that, and this was inspired by the hummingbird story, is to understand that on a moment-to-moment basis, if you live on autopilot, you are practicing, and I say practicing because it's a choice, you are practicing something that we're going to call the Jaguar mentality. And the Jaguar mentality is the mentality of the jaguar in the story, mocking, dismissive, denying, or resisting the understanding, the truth, and the awareness that you are the creator, that you get to have a choice. The biggest freedom in this life is our ability to choose. So the jaguar mentality is something that we slip into. It's just the way that our brains are wired because our brains are lazy. But the jaguar mentality, and by lazy, I just wanted to point out in case you are new here. By lazy, what I mean is that the brain likes to take energetic shortcuts because it likes to conserve energy, which means that the brain will take whatever shortcut it can to conserve energy and to make life a little bit more with help you to flow with ease. But the way that it chooses to flow with ease actually creates more resistance, and we'll create another video on that some other day. But today we're focusing on the jaguar mentality. And the jaguar mentality is essentially whenever you entertain cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions is a word that we throw around in the field of psychology, and essentially all it is filters. Whenever we have life experiences that want to enter into our conscious awareness, we need to have them go through certain filters. And these certain filters, because we've up to this point haven't chosen with intention or on purpose what they sound like, what they look like, what those filters will do, these cognitive distortions are a set of filters that render you helpless in this life. So it can be anything like all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing, or personalization, which is one of my favorites in terms of working with clients. I find that this is actually one that's very popular. But all or nothing, catastrophizing, personalization, all kind of interweave together and they overlap. But essentially, what we're talking about with these particular filters is when we have a particular experience that come into our awareness, we generalize it, we stretch it to mean that our lives are always going to be a certain way, that every aspect of our lives is going to be a certain way, or that what other people do and say are actually a reflection of our inherent value. Which, if you've done a lot of shadow work, if you've done the journey, if you're on the journey, you've done the healing, you'll understand that these filters are there because our brains are wired to survive, not to thrive. And therefore, if we're not paying attention, what's going to happen is that you're going to be on the highway driving to a concert that you've been dying to go to for months, and someone will cut you off, and now you're 5 minutes delayed because of the way that they cut you off. Right. I know that's not the best example, but just run with me here. What you're going to do is then you're going to see that they cut you off, and therefore you're going to be late. Therefore, you're not going to find parking. Therefore, you're going to miss the whole performance, and you're going to throw a fit. And so you're going to get arrested, and therefore you're going to lose your job, and therefore you're going to lose your house, and you're going to end up on the streets homeless. That is catastrophizing, right? All or nothing is something similar, where if perfectionism actually is one that is a great example, and it's one that I am still working through, where if something is not perfect, then you won't do it at all. Personalization is an example of cognitive distortions, in that what someone does or says somehow means something about your inherent value. So if you have a coworker that you overheard saying something mean or disrespectful about you, it somehow then means that your self-worth is actually diminished, or that you don't have any worth. So that is an example of catastrophizing. These cognitive distortions, what we're going to call Jaguar mentality, just to simplify it and to actually anchor it into something meaningful, is something that happens that we slip into very easily. We play the role of the jaguar, that dismissive, mocking, unbelieving, unfaithful character or archetype that we're playing, that actually makes us subconsciously feel really small. But what I want you to remember whenever you notice that you are falling into the jaguar mentality is that by the grace or the gift of God or the universe, you're also gifted in this life with what we call the hummingbird moments. A hummingbird moment is any moment where we are given a choice to see that we can believe in our own capacity or our own capability. In the psychology field, it's something called self-efficacy that a very famous psychologist named Albert Bandura a few decades ago did a lot of studies on this, called self-efficacy. For the time being, we're going to call it hummingbird moments. And self-efficacy essentially is whether or not we believe in our ability to influence our world and our lives. So, do you believe that you have the capacity or capability to create a business, to found something, to build something that is truly meaningful to you, and to make that your primary source of income? Your level of self-efficacy comes from 4 different sources. It's mastery experiences, vicarious learning, your physiological state, and verbal persuasion. So you can build your self-efficacy muscle by any one of those 4 things. So mastery experience is when you have essentially set a goal to do something, to achieve something, and you get there. So it can be as small as I'm going to set a goal to drink 4 glasses of water by the time I eat lunch. If you've been able to meet that goal and that goal was meaningful to you, you've built a mastery experience, which helps you to develop the self-efficacy muscle. You can also develop this muscle by what's called vicarious learning. And this is what happens when you observe other people, mentors, or friends or colleagues achieve something that you would like to also achieve. This is the reason why for decades the medical world, the scientific world believed with unbending certainty that the human body was not capable of running a 4-minute mile. But I forget however many years ago, in the 50s or 60s, someone actually ran a 4-minute mile. And as soon as that happened and he broke that glass ceiling, dozens of people then broke the 4-minute mile. Even though before this guy did it, no one else in this world, as we know, had been able to or had the capacity to do that. But as soon as this one guy beat that 4-minute mile, dozens of other people have followed suit. This is vicarious learning. Through vicarious learning, through observing other people achieving something worth achieving for you, you build self-efficacy muscles. Another way to build self-efficacy muscles is through verbal persuasion. This is when you have the people in your tribe, in your corner, giving you words of affirmation, encouraging you, telling you that you can do something. This is why we love our gurus, right? The Tony Robbins or Brendan Burchards or whoever your guru is, Joe Rogans. This is why we like to have quote unquote gurus in our lives, because they are the people, if we're missing personal people in our corner telling us that we can do something, encouraging us, these are the people that tell us, that give us the words of affirmation, that tell us, encourage us to become our best selves. And that helps us to build our self-efficacy muscle. The 4th one is your physiological state. This one is almost a non-negotiable, in that you can't build self-efficacy muscles unless you're in a physiological state, in a state of emotion where you are feeling inspired or motivated. So this is why when you are frustrated, resentful, spiteful, angry, annoyed, any of those quote unquote negative emotions, you are not able to tap into motivation, inspiration, creativity, right? So your physiological and emotional state are also an important part of building your self-efficacy muscles. But going back to the hummingbird story, throughout our 24-hour, well, let's minus 8 because we're sleeping, 16-hour day, you are going to have what's called hummingbird moments. And hummingbird moments are those moments where the universe graces you with a portal, a window of opportunity to not just become the best version of you, because becoming the best version of you implies that it's something that's still a distance away, whether it's arm's distance or miles distance, but it's not about becoming the best version of you. The hummingbird moment is a moment that's gifted to you by the universe to show you, to nudge you to be the best version of yourself, to be that hummingbird that says, I have to do my part. And to be so earnest in doing that, that you move the gods, that the universe bends over backwards to make sure that your heart is supported and nourished, and that your reality is something that you are manifesting very synchronistically. So, my dear soul friends, if you find yourself either feeling stuck, or if you're anything like a group of us where you are so empathic that you are hypersensitive to other people's expectations of you, other people's versions of life, their thoughts, their emotions, if you're hypersensitive and are aware, very aware of the people around you, and you find yourself in a place in life where you feel stuck and you want to really experience that feeling of homecoming, that experience of being at union with yourself and with that God spark within, and you want to really tap into this frequency of the hummingbird, I would love to invite you to come check out the Bodhi Sparks. It's a group, a community, a container that has been created for you, especially if you identify yourself with what I described just a moment ago, where you'll find the necessary tools, the support, and the collective energy that really nourishes you to be your best self. Not become your best self, but to be your best self and to choose courage. I want you to remember that your biggest barrier today isn't your lack of ability, right? This is why we talk about self-efficacy and your hummingbird moments. Your biggest barrier right now, whether it's you want to create the life that gives you the lifestyle of being in paradise, if you want to create a business that becomes your primary source of income, you want to be consistently supportive to your family, inspiring to your friends, if you want whatever that is your truest heart desires, if you find that there is a gap between where you are today and what that looks like in your mind's eye, I want you to remember that your biggest barrier isn't your ability or lack of ability. Your biggest barrier is your belief. And so I truly pray from the bottom of my heart that today the message that found you and spoke to your heart was that your ability to believe in yourself is truly about you knowing that you are here, 1 in 400 trillion chance, to be your own author, to be your life's engineer, creator, and architect. And that if you know how to believe in yourself, those hummingbird moments happen all the time. If you struggle with believing in yourself, come check us out. The Bodhi Sparks is your water source to find all of the tools and resources that help you to plug into your courage, help you to plug into your life purpose. And if nothing else, I hope this story inspired you to take a look at yourself and your life in a different way. Remember that it is always intentional. It is always an inside job. And I truly hope that you will find that spark inside that will set your soul on fire.